So who is then the best nation? The best nation, as I mentioned, is really the nation of pious individuals. Those pious individuals make up the concept of best nation in the Quran. First of all, this is one verse. This concept is talked about in many verses, and I've chosen some of these to show different aspects of it. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. O people, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know each other, one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. That is the concept of best in the Quran. So if somebody is righteous, obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he or she becomes a member of the best nation. As you can see, the description here, it doesn't talk about, it's not discriminatory, doesn't talk about race, color, social status, anything, absolutely none of that. It doesn't talk about Arabs or Hashemite, so the tribe of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Arabia. It doesn't say any of this. Blood connection is completely and utterly irrelevant to being a member, to the membership of the nation, the best nation, as in the best people in the sight of Allah. What matters is faith and good deeds. Al-Iman wal-Amal al-Salih. This binary concept in the Quran that occurs in so many times. So meaning that your faith, pure of heart, pure of thinking, and what you know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worship Him alone, etc. And the Amal, what we do as we live our life. And because of that, this best nation has open membership. Its membership is open to anybody who would like to join it. This is another verse that talks specifically in those terms. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمروا بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله ولو آمن أهل الكتاب لكان خيرا لهم منهم المؤمنون وأكثرهم الفاسقون. You are the best nation produced for people in joining what's right and forbidding what's wrong and believing in Allah. If the people of the book had believed, it would have been better for them. Among them are believers, but most of them are disobedient. And so what you see here in this verse, first of all, the use of a specific term, ummah. Ummah means nation, group of people, khayra ummatin. But look at the definition of that khayra ummah, how it's defined. That ummah is defined as enjoining what's right and forbidding what's wrong and believing in Allah. If you look at those two, they are the two elements I mentioned earlier that occur in the Quran, throughout the Quran, which is faith, proper belief, and proper good works, good actions, good deeds. And these two are the components of membership of the best nation according to the Quran. And what's interesting as well is the contrast that this particular verse makes between this concept, khayra ummah, and the people of the book, meaning telling them, well, you're not just the people of the book just because you say so, because you believe that you're so, but it's actually you can become khayra ummah, best nation, if you actually do what is required for every and anybody who would like to become a member of khayr ummah, that best nation. And that best nation is the one nation, the same nation that existed throughout history. Because the message is one, the core of the message is one, the messengers came from the same God and the one God, from Allah, teaching the same message throughout history. So this is one particular verse I chose because it's interesting. This verse, I couldn't cite the whole text. إن هذه أمتكم أمة واحدة وأنا ربكم فاعبدون. This verse occurs after a long text, many verses that talked about the number of prophets that appeared at different stages in history. After it talks about all of those, it then concludes and say, indeed, this is your nation, one nation, and I am your Lord, so worship me. Beautiful. So present all of those prophets and their followers by implication, and they say, this is your ummah. So it's addressing, obviously, the people who are being addressed in the Quran. So those who lived at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and all the generations after that, you and me, Paul, and everyone else. So this is saying that this is your nation. This is the one nation. I've got only one nation. If anybody would like to talk about the nation of Allah, that is the nation of Allah, the nation of the prophets and the nation of those who followed those prophets. This is another example. إن أولى الناس بإبراهيم للذين اتبعوه هذا النبي والذين آمنوا والله ولي المؤمنين. Indeed, the people who have the best claim to Abraham, as in being best claim to being the closest to Abraham, are those who followed him. So those who followed him at the time and afterwards, this prophet, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those who believe. And then it ends with Allah is the ally of the believers. Anybody who believe. So if you want to claim to be connected to Abraham, well, that's how you become connected to Abraham. You don't have to, and you won't need to be from his bloodline. That's how you become by faith and good works. And the last verse I would like to quote here is that this is in the Quran talking about وَمِنْ قَوْمِ مُوسَى أُمَّةٌ يَهْدُونَ بِالْحَقِّ وَبِهِ يَعْدِلُونَ. And among the people of Moses is a nation that guides by truth and establishes justice by it. So the Quran is praising a group, an ummah, a nation from the people of Moses. So this is just, it's open to everybody. And you can see the consistency, the justice. Those who are interested in human rights, these are human rights. It cannot be more just, more fair, more even-handed than this. That's talking about Moses at the time of the Prophet, his followers then. The other one is talking about connecting to Ibrahim. And the one before is talking about every prophet throughout history and the people who followed them. It's just so simple, so consistent, so clear, compelling, and powerful. Now, Muslims are often accused of hijacking the concept of best nation. So the Jews accuse Christians of hijacking the concept of chosen, meaning best. And then the Christians obviously accuse the Muslims, and the Jews accuse both of them, Christians and Muslims. But is that a fair criticism that Muslims have hijacked this concept? I showed earlier that the concept of best nation is clearly nothing to do with Arabs, followers or any particular prophet, etc. Is a universal concept that extends over history of humanity, and it's open, its membership, this nation is open to everybody who meets its conditions. These are conditions set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But let's look at one particular verse, which is very instructive. So here, Allah is addressing the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. وَالَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ هُوَ الْحَقُّ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِعِبَادِهِ لَخَبِيرٌ بَصِيرٌ. And that which we have revealed to you of the book is the truth, confirming what was before it. Indeed, Allah is acquainted with and seeing of his servants. Clearly a reference to the Quran here. But that's the verse I'm after. ثم أورثنا الكتاب الذين اصطفينا من عبادنا فمنهم ظالم النفس ومنهم مقتصد ومنهم سابق بالخيرات بإذن الله ذلك هو الفضل الكبير. Then we cause those we have chosen, meaning those who are going to inherit the book, the Quran, of our servants to inherit the book. So these are the people who the Quran came to, and that includes all the generations afterwards. Among them is he who wrongs himself. Among them is he who is moderate in his action, and among them is one who is foremost in good deeds by permission of Allah. fantastic. It's just so beautiful. So those who inherited the Quran, talking about the book here, are split into three groups. The fact that we inherited the Quran is no guarantee in its own that we won't belong to the first group, ظالم لنفسه, meaning somebody who wrongs himself, so somebody who's deluded, somebody who's gone wrong. Muqtasid means somebody who's kind of their actions are half and half, if you like. And sabiqun bil khair, those who are foremost in good deeds, who take the initiative, who are keen on living to the expectations and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted from them. That, in addition to the descriptions and the verses I quoted earlier, should leave no doubt whatsoever that any claim that the Quran copies what the Hebrew Bible does or the New Testament, and trying to present the concept of chosenness that is detached from or it has anything to do or link or defining best nation as anything other than being based on faith and good deeds is actually wrong. The Quran has no other concept of best nation, including when it deals with those who inherited the Quran. That's you, Paul, myself, and everybody else.